In this video, we will talk about the MoDOT CAD detailing standards that are set up. Now, to get to the MoDOT CAD detailing standards, we need to go to the workflow of MoDOT CAD detailing standards. And then once you're underneath there, you're going to see some different ribbons. You're going to have bridge, design, and survey. And the one that we're going to talk about is the one underneath design. But you'll notice that the bridge and the survey are set up very similar. Now once you look at this, these first three right here are three different groups. We got annotation, where you can place annotation in the actual file. There's a strip map portion of it, and then there's a graphic scale, patterns, and north arrow, stuff that you can place onto the sheets. And after that, from title sheet across till the last icon for the cross sections and culvert sheets, that's all the different types of sheets that you will be producing in a normal set of contract plans. So if you need CAD detailing standards and you're detailing your sheets and you're working underneath a particular sheet, let's say traffic control, you would go to that particular group, and that node or that line style or that other item will probably be underneath that particular group. Now, in conjunction with this, our cells, our text, our notes, our line styles, and stuff like that are all annotative driven. So what I will need to do is actually set my annotation scale to whatever size my named boundary is. And on the named boundary, that's going to be demonstrated in a separate video. But basically we have a named boundary in our default model, which then produces a drawing model and a sheet model, which the sheet model actually has the actual border inside there. So anything that I draw inside of this named boundary, which is a 50 scale for this example, it will be placed onto that sheet model inside of this file. And we will show that at the very end of this particular video. Now, to demonstrate some of the items that are inside of the CAD detailing standards, let's say for an example we just want to place some general text inside the file. So let's go to that general annotation group, and you're going to see some items underneath there, and I will just select MoDOT small text. And whenever you select that, what it's going to do is, number one, bring up the suggested tool to use, which is the place text tool, but then it also loads up all the attributes for that text. Or if it's a line style, it would be all the attributes for that line. Or if it's dimensions, it would load up all the attributes for the dimension. So that's the nice thing about these detailing standards. It automatically loads up everything for you in a single left click. So now if I come in here and I place small text, and then I will just place it onto my boundary here, you'll notice that I placed the text, and then it's also with these attributes that are set up right here. So that's an example with text. Now I will place a note. So if I go back to general annotation, and this time I will do the MoDOT note medium, loads up all the attributes for that. And now I will identify where I want to place the note, and then drop it off by a single left click, and you'll see that it places the note. So that's an example of placing a note in text. I can do the same thing for dimension. So if I come down through here and I select the one that says dimension small decimal, loads up all the attributes for that, gives me the suggested tool to use, and now I would just come out here and dimension that shape that's out there. So like I said, with the CAD standards, it loads up the suggested tool to use, number one, and then it also loads up the attributes for that. Now I can come in here if I want to use a different tool. Let's say I want to use a different dimensioning tool. I could do that, but it just brings up the suggested tool to use. You can always go in and use a different tool, but it just gives you the CAD standards for that. Plus it loads up the correct attributes for it: level, color, style, and weight. This time I will come in here to my graphic scale, patterns, and north arrow. Let's say I want to place a north arrow. I could select this right here, And now I can come in here and place the north arrow in whatever location that I want. So it brings in that cell. Same thing for my graphic scale. I know this is a 50 scale, so I can select it and I can place that cell accordingly. Same thing if I want to do hatch. Let's say I want to do some cross hatching. I can click on that, loads up everything about it. On this one here, I will just use the flood method, because I'll just flood inside of this shape here, and then I'll left click to accept it, and now I place that crosshatch. Let's say I want to put in a different pattern. So if I go back to the graphic scales, patterns, and north arrow, this time I will do sodding. Loads up all the attributes for that, and I will just flood this box again. Left click inside of it, left click again to accept it. You may get this box right here. Just go ahead and click on OK to that, and it brings in that pattern. If you zoom into it, you can see that pattern has been placed. So hopefully you get the idea of how the CAD detailing standards are set up. Like I said, number one, it brings up the suggested tool to use, which that's the one that you should use, but you can always use some other tool. And then number two, it loads up all the other attributes for it, for like the level, color, style, and weight, maybe some text attributes for it, or dimension attributes for it, and so forth. Let me go ahead and hit F4 to clear it out. Another example would be just placing a line out there. So if I go to, let's say, plane sheet geometry, on these you're going to see some other groups that you can get to. For this one here, I will do utilities, and then you'll see all the different items underneath here. And you can kind of see there's some icons beside each one of these particular ones. That will kind of give you an indication of what it's going to bring up. For like this one here would be the smart line. For this one here would be the cell. If you see the big letter A, it's going to bring up the place text tool. So it kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to load up before you actually select that particular item. So let's say I want to come in here and do fiber optic underground new. I will select it. Loads up all the attributes for it. Gives me the suggested tool to use. And now I can come out here and place that fiber optic line. Or if I want to place some other line out there, I could go back to it, and let's say I want water underground new. I can select it, changes my attributes, and then I can come in here and place that line accordingly with the CAD detailing standards. Or if I go back to traffic control, you're going to see some different items underneath there. Let's say I want to put in a particular sign. And now I can come in here and I can place that sign inside of my sheet. Maybe this time I will select a different sign, so I will go back to the signs with flags, and I will just select a different one. And now I can come in here and place that one. Or maybe something a little bit different. And then once I right click to end it, now I'm finished. So that's kind of the basics of how the CAD standards are set up. You got your different ribbons across here for bridge, design, and survey. It's broken out by what type of sheet it is, whether you're in design or in bridge. You can kind of see it set up that way too if you're doing box culverts or the front sheet or the end bents, intermediate bents, and so forth. And then you have some general annotation and then graphic scales and patterns that you can select also. So that's kind of the way the CAD standards are set up. Once you select one of those, it brings up the suggested tool to use and also the correct attributes for that particular item. And it's used in conjunction with the annotation scale. So make sure that's set up first with that named boundary that you have placed inside of your default model. Because if I come in here and change this to a 5 scale, you're going to notice that all these cells are going to size accordingly. My line styles are going to scale down according to that annotation scale. So like I said, the best method is to make sure you have your name boundary of whatever size border that you want, and then of course the annotation scale of whatever size that you place for that boundary. Now since we have this named boundary inside my default model, like I said before, it actually creates a drawing model and a sheet model, which the sheet model will have the border. And how to do the named boundary will be demonstrated in a separate tool. But if I want to get back into my actual sheet model to see my border, you're going to see all this geometry here is actually referenced to that border. So anything that I add inside of this default model or the drawing model will be produced into that sheet model or referenced in. So if I go back to my ribbon and I'll go to drawing, and if I go to my models, which is this little icon right here, you'll notice that I have a drawing model, which is this one right here, and then also my sheet. So if I go ahead and double click on my sheet model, you'll notice that all that geometry is referenced to the sheet model. So what you'll be doing is actually putting in all of your geometry in either the default model or the drawing model, and then in the sheet model it'll actually have all that geometry referenced into your sheet model, just like the way it's shown right here. So that's the demonstration of how to use and how the CAD standards are set up in ORD.